I understand we have a couple of parents in the crowd. Tatiana, could we get them to completely, with completely no warning, we're going to ask you if you would come up here too. This is not advertised as being a session with a panel, but we formed sort of impromptu a panel. We're not asking any of them to make formal presentations. But, right, since you've known about it for 45 seconds now, right? But this will be our, in part our panel of experts, but many of you, I know that these will not be the only parents in the room, so many of you, in a sense, are also part of this panel of experts. What we want to do is just have a discussion of this idea. Let's see. Right, so again, the title is the discussion of a network of math circles. We want to be talking about what could such a national network do. What could it add? What value could it add perhaps to the math circles that are already out there? What could it do to perhaps foster more math circles? How should it possibly work? Now, I started first by asking our organizers if they would come up here, because they're an example already of how you can combine various ideas and locations for math circles in such a way that the whole does become greater than the sum of its parts. So we already have some people here who have done something like this on a local level that perhaps could be done more widely on a national level. And we also have some parents who are here to talk about the role that parents have in current math circles and in advising perhaps a larger group of math circles. So what I would like to do is to start by perhaps asking first our organizers if they would have maybe a few comments or some ideas about what needs you see for such a coordinating group. What could such a coordinating group perhaps do that would give value added to perhaps individual math circles? Why do this, and what could it add? Any ideas about that? Thoughts?
First of all, if we want to do a network, national network of math circles / Olympiads / camps, we need a lot of money. I am speaking from a realistic point of view, knowing what is happening on our local level. And we have seen some burnout among us. Being a volunteer for many years simply does not work for many reasons. Family reasons, job reasons, etc., etc. If we want to involve teachers, that also will involve extra burnout, as we have heard in the previous session. So we need money, a lot of it, and to channel it in a way to reduce this burnout and to encourage people to participate. I'm coming from a, previously socialist country where money wasn't an issue because there wasn't much of it. But I have changed my views since coming to the United States. And as funny as it may be, one can run these things on a voluntary base for a long, long time, only under very special circumstances, and most probably there won't be anyone to replace that person afterwards, so it will die. So we need a lot of money. Who can get the money and through whom the money should be channeled, in my mind, is obvious, but I will not say it. Whether it can happen and whether it will happen, this is a different question. And there are different agencies through which this also can happen. I would like to see the academia to get involved in it officially, so that there is an official academic umbrella above this network, so that both the involved research mathematicians and teachers get credit one way or another, not just the money, but also the credit. Another thing I believe is necessary is a national coordinator. These are just ideas that came up today. We haven't said before and thought about them, but apparently they have been gradually come to our attention. One needs a national coordinator in the same sense as the American math competitions have their director. This is a full-time position, and there is a lot of administration that is being done. There are website materials, a lot of advertisement, and so on. Now, this doesn't mean that necessarily the duties of that national coordinator will have to be precisely the same as the director of AMC, but there has to be someone who is enthusiastic enough to do such a thing, and that person will have to be paid maybe not a full-time, but maybe part-time, so that the person can dedicate time and energy to do this and possibly get a course reduction or some other benefit. And that position has to rotate. In other words, it shouldn't be only one person. Because of a burnout, and also because we want to have new blood and new ideas running. The main duties of such a position or such a person that I see are several. First of all, to oversee construction of a new website where we will have all the math circles, math contests, math camps, information, very easy to find, and so on. That is one thing. Whether there has to be also a web designer along hired to do this, maybe that is also another issue to discuss. Another duty would be to gather enough funds so that if a new circle wants to open up, they can write a short proposal to that person, and there can be money distributed to that circle, maybe more money in the first year to get it started. But the support has to run as well as for old circles as for new circles. And I think that is the most important that I find from my personal experience. There has to be one person charged with this, but given opportunity to both money, both time, and support an academic umbrella above.
Thanks, Vesda. Now, again, I want to emphasize the format here is not that everybody up here is going to give a formal speech and then we're going to ask questions. This is a conversation, so I would really like to see that conversation start right away if possible. In particular, for those others who run math circles, you might want to react right away to what your feelings are about whether this would help or hinder your efforts, because that's really the important question here.
Well, I don't run a math circle at this point, but my question is that there is a math circle in Boston, there is one in the Bay Area. What do I do who live in a much more rural area, where there are no thousands and thousands of students that I can count on, but maybe a couple of hundred? How do you have any idea how we can move this to inside America, other than the two coasts? The red states, exactly, yeah.
The red states were just mentioned. Thoughts about that question? This could be, as Svezda mentioned, this could be some place that a national organization could have a role because they could help provide structure and references and so forth.
I don't see Richard Resik here right now, but I think his art of problem solving online is a wonderful place for children to participate in ongoing conversations, and I know that our children have just had great fun in the chat rooms, and they do problems and they make friends, and they, it's a really good source. So it's kind of like a math circle.
Tom, you had a comment?
It seems to me that another interesting resource that you might be able to hand out would be a videotape of a few running math circles. Maybe not the full things, but you could show 15 minutes of each of 5 or 6 pretty good people running them, so that if I'm starting to run a math circle and I've never seen one before, you'd have the books with the materials with sample problems and so forth, and you could see basically how people use this material to get through sessions. And that would be something that wouldn't be so, you'd have to generate the videotapes, DVDs, whatever, and mail those out. So that'd be something we could provide.
Well, let me make a suggestion about that. We have an organization here that has a lot of expertise about posting streaming video online. What would happen perhaps if a few of those were videotaped and then posted to the MSRI website? They'd be easy enough to get to. Yeah, Tatiana.
I think that there were lots of talks about hard to reach audience, hard to reach communities, and there was no solution. I was listening and listening, and there was no solution. Nobody proposed anything in that direction. I think that one of the duties of that person or persons, maybe we need more than one people who would try to coordinate all these efforts, will be to try and devise something that some mechanism to reach these hard to reach communities.
Thank you. Thoughts about that? Or anything else?
So I guess I'm going to be plugging a couple of organizations I'm involved in here, and a couple of these ideas are off the wall. One is what was discussed earlier today, which is math summer camps, which do have the ability to draw people when there's really just one or two students in an area that are interested. Those programs, the students can go there, they can be in a great environment, and frequently the program can help fund that, or they can help with funding for it. Another thing, and this one is off the wall, is that there are a lot of young people that are very interested in devoting some of their time to education. I was an undergraduate at MIT, and I was part of a group called the Educational Studies Program. And they put on, every November, a weekend-long program called Splash, which runs for 16 hours and teaches everything under the sun. Hours and hours of math classes, classes on politics, on physics, on knitting, on everything. And for a long time, I ran the organization for a while, and for a long time they were speculating about the idea of traveling, of going in a bus. This is a completely volunteer organization that gets free space from MIT. They charge their students something like $20 for the whole weekend. Over the years, they've built up about $70,000 or $80,000 in their bank account because they keep lowering their prices and they keep getting 1,000 students at each program. So they have the resources and they have the willingness. And if someone said, here's my school or here's my university, you have classrooms this weekend, they would probably pay for publicity and they would probably rent a bus and they'd bring down 30 or 40 MIT and Harvard students and Tufts students and BU students, and they would come down and they would teach all you wanted to any region for a weekend if people wanted to do that. I mean, there are lots of places where people could come around.
I think one of the problems about thinking about starting a math circle or anything is that the model you have in mind is of a completed math circle, whereas actually they're extremely easy to start. If you know a child who goes to school and has friends and they have parents, about an evening's worth of telephone calls saying, I'm thinking of doing something with math. Would any of your kids, or do you know any other kids who? And in the smallest town in this country, you can probably find 10 children, which is probably all that you'd want to have when you begin. And then there's this marvelous way in which each of the 10 who's had a good time tells 3 other people. And soon you're nailed to the wall and you're hiring other teachers and you're beginning to think about setting up websites, and then you're a math circle. You don't need to begin at the top.
Thank you. Joshua had a comment or question. I will get that. I'm going to ask a question of the parents first, though, since parents were just mentioned in the comments you made. In getting something like that started, you mentioned, you can find in the smallest town maybe 10 parents, 10 children whose parents would be willing to help you get things going and so forth. What do you see in a situation like that? What is the role of the parents? Perhaps what have you seen as the role of you as parents in math circles and keeping your children involved? I know in my work with Native American communities that's incredibly important. If I don't have the support of the parents, I can't get into the community. Any thoughts about parents' roles in all of this? What you see that maybe you've done or got out of these things? Anybody want to take a shot at that?
Hi. Well, one of the things you might want to consider doing is doing a competition team and just putting together a team of kids who are just interested in doing things like that. And what it leads to is a great social interaction, and the kids then start to intellectually really take off. But I must say that before Vicki joined Spezda's Math Circle in February of last year, she was nothing like she is now. I mean, it just was a real turning point, and very appreciative for that. And also then Paul Zeitz, she took a class from him on problem solving over the summer, and that was also a pivotal point. So I think you'll find that parents will follow the kids, essentially. Kids want to do something, parents will follow.
Well, I would say that one of the things to do is the basic job that you have as a parent, which is to encourage your child to do something important like this. They face the peer pressure of, math's not a really cool thing to do, and I got better things to do with my evening. But to encourage them that this is a very worthwhile thing to do, drive them to the thing, right? Sit there with them and learn something and watch them learn. I would say to it. I don't have much experience in starting. I have no experience in starting this, so I couldn't answer that question. We have come to a math circle that's already well developed. But I would think that one of the intimidating things for someone starting this is, it is easy to gather a group of people if you can find some people interested, but is there material to help you start? I think that's somewhat intimidating of, okay, now I've got these people in the room and maybe I have something interesting for the first 1 or 2 meetings, but where do I go from there? And I think there are some wonderful resources on the web, but I've stumbled across those accidentally. There doesn't seem to be any coordinated way to do that, and I would think that there is a need for something like that.
I actually see here 2 problems. One of them is actually a problem that the school should have, but they don't, and that's like math clubs. They're just activity, and when people are engaged, solving puzzles, all of these, extremely important, and also engaging many more kids. But I also have to add that Berkeley, at least, Math Circle was revelation to me. This is nothing short of fantastic. This is people come, my kid come, he's 7th grader, and a Russian professor come, take no prisoners, and start with a set of axioms, and right away, later on, we settled down, we saw some other who will come to the level of the kid, but all of them just incredibly nice to the kids, and that's by itself worth a lot. I mean, just seeing an environment which is academic and to see what is really mathematics. I don't think it's the only thing. They should do the other stuff, but I think it's very valuable. So somehow you have to do both. As far as Berkeley is concerned, it's true that the math club aspect of it is not very developed, at least not in my experience in 1 year. I mean, the kids come, they participate, but after that there is no activity. If it wasn't for Yuki, who would we go together. It would be nice if there would be some activity that we could have our kid come and do problems together. Last year, like you have the monthly contest, that was very nice. This year we don't even have that. So it would be nice to engage the kid a little bit more beyond it. Although this is really the rule of schools, I think, more than the math circles, but it would be nice to have that.
But Elon, the other thing is that if our kids hadn't all met at the Berkeley Math Circle, we wouldn't have come together as a team. Yeah,
it was fantastic. The last year
it made a huge change in a lot of lives.
Because of the competition.
Yeah.
The kids got together and Yuki organized them. What we call them? Running in circles?
Going in circles.
We have a group going in circles, and we did very good in all of these things. And that was great because we meet every Saturday for 2-3 hours, have dinner together, and do math problems. That was really great, and it came from the math circle, even though it was not organized. So that's where maybe the parents can come. That the parents who come to the math circle can take on this particular activity.
Well, the parents had fun too.
So here's one follow-up question before I get back to Joshua's point. So if we're trying to found this new math circle in some small town, here we are, 3 terrifically supportive parents. This is absolutely wonderful. How do we find you if the math circle is not already there? Is that an unanswerable question? Any ideas?
Chicken and egg.
How did you find us?
Paul Zeitz.
How did you find Paul?
Arnold?
Last name in the phone book.
This is the reason Tony Zygmunt was easy to find in the online directory.
I just was a visitor on MSRI, heard about it, and I just waited for my kid to be old enough so I can join. So I was waiting for 2 years to meet you.
We met Paul through Armel.
And we found out about the San Jose one through John Howe. My daughter was one of his students.
So I think we'll have to think about that one. It sounds like success begets success, but let's think about how we could do this if that success wasn't already there. And I've been promising Joshua the microphone here.
We're talking about summer camps and about these weekend things. My question is, why don't we all have schools like North Carolina where the kids who are interested in this can do it year-round? That school is going to have a math club. You don't have to worry about getting a math club into every single school. Why don't you bring together all the kids who want that into one place where they can be together, not just for these great summer experiences, and they go their separate ways, and they wait, and now it's another summer at last. Why not send them to a school? I think that's what schools are supposed to be about. So I was kind of curious about, whether something like Cosmos can expand into something like that happening in California, or whether the math circles can expand that way. What parents would think about sending their students to such a school, what role the math circles movement can have in convincing people in the appropriate places in government that a school like that is useful and necessary. So.
There's been a lot of wonderful things said about the Berkeley Math Circle, and you guys obviously deserve that. But I think I also would like to say some words of praise to MSRI for hosting this year. And I think that we all need, in order for this to work, all the different groups must work together: parents, schools, teachers, community, the academicians. But also, for the academicians, it's important that the mathematical community supports academicians who are involved with this. And obviously, a lot of academicians don't get that kind of support from their institutions. And I think that the fact that MSRI has organized this conference has lent an incredible amount of legitimacy to math circles, and hopefully people with leadership positions in AMS and MAA and other organizations can further help convince department chairs and deans that this is something worth supporting.
I think actually. Be right back.
I'd like to get back to Vesta's deep concern, and certainly she has one that we must pay heed to. This operation is going to fold in the future unless we pick up about $1 million to sustain it. And Wade and Karen really knows what I'm going to say here about raising funds. The IMO budget was $3.2 million, and it took us wait about 3 years to raise that, and people made commitments so that it would go. My suggestion is this: it's not going to happen unless you get a structure first. Someone who's going to take the reins as being the executive director or president and so on, so that when you speak, you're speaking with a force of that people can read with confidence. You can have your spot here, you can have spots in Boston and so on, but if you want to disseminate this and retain it, you're going to have a structure, initial structure first that you can use to apply. Now, there are many people, and if you read the latest Forbes magazines, you know where the top people are in the sense of funding. We've tried people that you would be surprised it gave us very little or none. But I think unless you have a structure first. Now, this organization here, which the Research Institute is a wonderful place to start with in the sense of, and they're raising money right now themselves in the sense of drive, so they know exactly what I'm talking about, how difficult it is to get the funds. But you have a product here which is really unbelievable in the sense of long-term effect of students and support of teachers. But going to the red states, you're not going to get a structure there unless you are available to support them, but you can't do that because you're already fully loaded with what you're doing right now. So you need some funding so you can pay people to be your missionaries to continue this if you want to spread it throughout the United States and so on. Structure, funding drive, and then it'll take off.
turn? Yeah. Then we'll get to Mark.
I have some experience with organizing math circle in small towns. I'm from Mobile, Alabama, and we have about 2,100 population in our area. And our math circle is university-based math circle. Okay, and I'll give you some details how we organize math circle. First, it was 1999 with my colleagues from university, Dr. Flat. We thought how we organize this program for high school students. And first, what we did. We went to Alabama School of Math and Science, and we talked with principal, and we said, we want to check our ideas about math circle, and we would like to do some free program for your high school students. And we did it for about half of year semester, spring semester. We invite students every Wednesday. And we did some topics, and like mathematical topics, invariant symmetry, and we check our mathematical ideas, how it works, how many problems we need to give to students. It's very simple questions. 20 problems to prepare for session, 10, maybe 5. So it's something simple, but actually this is important for how to organize math circle. What is methodology? How we need to work with students. So we check this for half of the year, more or less it works. We did some mistakes. And then we were ready to organize university-based math circle, okay, mobile mathematical circles. And what we did first, we wrote letters to teachers. It was in May. We sent letters almost every math teachers in our area. We wrote that we are going to organize in September math circle. We invite your high school students. It's free program for high school students. There's some interesting topics. And we invite your students, we invite teachers, and we expect it will be fun for them. So next step, so in May we wrote letters to teachers. Next step, we tried to find some funds. It was June, July, we tried to find, we did search a lot in websites, we tried to find where's the money, where's some funds that can help to support us. And we find some resource from NASA, and actually we contact with person NASA, is it possible to support this outreach program, and they was willing to support us, and we will get grant. It was very small grant, 5,000, but it gave us some kind of freedom to do this math circle. Okay, next step was, actually to do math circle it's not so difficult. You need to follow some program and to some program. Next step in August. Actually I'm following these steps every year. So next step in August, you need to send to print out posters, okay, with description, what is math circle is, what kind of programs, what we're going to do, this is free program for students and so on. And we send these posters every school. And also it's really important to have some personal contacts with teachers, okay. So as more as possible, it's good. We went to different schools, we speak with teachers, and we try to explain how it is important for students, how it's important for teachers, and we're doing it every year. Okay, we're sending posters, and then next is we had really great support from university. Okay, this is actually I was surprised. We got support from the department, from department chairs, from our faculty. Next thing we got support on the college level and the presidential level. Okay, in the sense, it was written article about our math circle, and we have, after it was published, actually the first session, we had already about 35 students in the first session of the math circle. And when students came, so we have not only students, we have the teachers. And this is from the first date, we have really good contacts with teachers, and these teachers actually, every session visit us, and then we'll continue for this year, these contacts, and we'll get students from these teachers, okay? So, and then next part is actually very simple from my point is how to teach students. If you know mathematics, it's not so difficult to do. If you have experience to teach students, you know methodology. Mathematical circle from my point, actually it's really hard to do. I mentioned yesterday, I prefer some sense, please understand correctly, to teach 5 calculus classes in a week than 1 mathematical circle session. Because after mathematical circle, actually I'm so tired. because everything what I'm doing, it's actually always changes. So it changes. You need to see how students follow you. If it don't follow you, you need to find a way to explain it different way. You need to find something simple, to find some simple ideas or some different contacts. So, and so we have my circle sessions every week. And then what kind of book you need to use? Well, there's a lot of books. For example, Dmitry Fomin book, you can start from this book and do some sessions. Actually, what's important, what topics are. From my point, it's important what is mathematics. Is it interesting? If you see some, and you see in students' eyes some kind of energy, they're interested to do it, it works. So, and a lot of things what we need to do, just, I'm almost finished. Actually, I have a lot of ideas about my circle because I did it for, not on me, with my colleagues, 5 years. 5 years. In some sense, now it's quite simple, but details are so important. One of the details is, at the end of the year, to write letters, thank you letters to teachers who invite you, who bring these students. This is one of the details, but it's also important to thank you letters to teachers, to thank you students for coming. Maybe sometimes you can give student books for appreciation of what you've done. They're good students. So, no, probably that's it what I remember now, and maybe later I'll continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark.
All right, I'm sitting here thinking, what can I contribute from my experience? Because I also have like 10 years experience in doing this. My model was a little bit different, but something that Walter said made me think why it's important. Walter talked about structure, and I want to speak to that, but it's not going to sound like that. Because my experience is it's not typical. I taught for 15 years in a small wealthy suburb of New York City. So it's not in the middle of nowhere. It's a community of means. This is not the average story at all. But I think you can get something from it. How did it start? How did these math circles start? I did something cool with a kid in class one day, and it got back to the parent. The parent was enlightened. These are professional parents mostly. And they asked, can you do more of that stuff? And they hired me. They paid me to come into their house. And it started with 4 kids, and pretty soon I had 8 kids, and pretty soon I had 12, and I said I can't do it because I was doing it around the kitchen table. We have to split into 2. And within 3 years, I was doing 2 of these every day after school, after having taught 5 classes. Now, I couldn't do it now, but so one of the things is that if parents hear and if they have an image of what's going on, they will ask you to do it. And if you think about it, for a lot of communities, not every one, and certainly not the ones that are hard to reach, they can pay you $5 or $10 a week, and that represents a certain value to them, if they have the image of what it's about. And to me, that's what Walter's comment about structure, that's why that's important. Everybody knows what a Cub Scout club group is, whatever you call it, den pack. So if you say, let's start a Cub Scout group, people will rally to it. They know what it's about. Let's start a Little League. Let's start a girls club. They'll know what we're talking about. Let's start a swimming team. But they don't know what let's start a math circle is. And a more national structure, that's one of the things it can contribute. The other things which I just in the back of my mind, what made this be successful, and then tell you why I don't think it was successful. Number one, I can be the Pied Piper with kids, and that's really what you have to do. So you have to find somebody who can do that. And the other thing is, I can sort of improvise and get mathematics out of very ordinary things. And Dima Fomin's book is wonderful, but you have to know how to read it if you're going to work with 5th graders and 4th graders and 3rd graders. And there's not enough literature which tells you how to do that. One thing that we could have, that MSRI could have, is video clips or something else which speaks to the methodology of this business, because it all depends on that. Where it wasn't successful, well, I didn't know I was going to leave the town, and so I had no understudy. Plus, I probably couldn't find one, and so I don't think there are any math circles there now, and that's a problem.
Paul.
I'm going to hand this over to Richard soon, who I kind of dragooned up here, because a few minutes ago when Mary Fay was mentioned Richard, I was about to say the same thing. But We only have a few minutes also, but I think we need to broaden and also focus the ideas here. And I'm really just going to unfortunately ramble a little bit, but we have to distinguish between existing circles that you want to continue to support, sort of circles in their infancy that you want to get off the ground, but then more importantly, non-existent circles that you want to create out of nothing. And we also, and then to broaden the idea, we have to remember our ultimate goal is not creating math circles, but just, well, at least from my point of view, this sort of disease model of spreading infection. And that can be done through summer camps. I think that's a very important thing. And it can be done through a website such as Richard's, which might be the model of the future because it's able to serve huge populations, you know, theoretically anywhere in the universe. And also, there needs to be, what Dan Teague said is very important, there needs to be a way to get teachers involved in a way that is enhances everybody and is respectful. And I think, are you Dan? Yeah, Dan brought up there's the other, Dan brought up this idea of students coming in, you know, and it's really exciting, and I think it's a great idea, but it also does have the cultural potential of being similar to like the college students come in from the north down south in the 1960s to kind of, you know, uplift the cultural values. And you got to be careful about this idea of uplifting, because we're not uplifting. What we're trying to do is to spread infection. We should think of it in a sort of a more respectful way, that way. But the key, and again, I want to return to Zvezda's point, a key idea is money, or the equivalent of money, which is time. Because it's not like these teachers are bad and need to be better, but what we'd like is for teachers who already like math a little, we want them to maybe love it more and be able to transmit it more. And they need help from their administrators. They need release time. They don't need a whole lot either, but there should be a way to have a central clearinghouse to spread these ideas, put out so you want to start a math circle video or something like that. It shouldn't be too hard to get off the ground. I want to. Do you have any words you want to say? Because you're sitting, I forced you to sit here.
Was there something specific I was supposed to say?
No,
you mentioned something that Mary had said, so.
But you haven't talked about your website that much. Maybe you could do it for 3 minutes so that everybody knows a little more.
All right. I mainly, what I've heard a lot of here is just basically a lot of different models. And, you know, some people are more open to hearing other people's models than others. But I taught in high school for half a year, and that was way too hard. So I left and went and traded bonds, which was way easier. And I have a lot of friends in academia and a lot of friends in the classroom, and I'm not particularly thrilled about either of those models, so I've gone and built my own. And I'm not too thrilled about it either, so I'm learning that I'm just the kind of person who's just not too thrilled with anything. But listening here, the most useful thing for me has been to hear little pieces of all the models, and I'm going to use them all. Like, just, I've been struggling with how to take we teach online classes in a moderated chat room, which is great because when a kid gets stuck, we have IMO gold medalists as our assistant instructors, which is a riot. They know more math than the instructors, but they get to work with the kids who get a little stuck or who are going too far ahead. We just, I tell them, hey, give them an IMO problem, that'll keep them busy, and they'll work with them. And we've been struggling with turning these classes into textbooks, and 45 minutes ago, I saw how to do it because Josh told me how. He told me to take the classes and make them textbooks. Start with the questions. That's what we do in the classes, so that's what we're going to do. And there have been a lot of little pieces like this that I'm going to take with me and try. I'm a big empiricist. I've failed so many different things. But I see little pieces of things here that have succeeded really well, and I'll take that with me. Basically, quickly, our site is artofproblemsolving.com, and we're trying to build the thing that we wanted when we were 14. This is the same philosophy we had when we started the Mandelbrot, when we were 19 or 20, and when we wrote The Art of Problem Solving, which I started when I was 21. I got sidetracked on that Wall Street thing, but nicely that gave me the savings to try to do what I'm doing now, which is go out and hire a couple people who are smarter than me to do things like develop resources for these kids. We have a message board which has over 5,600 members on it, and it's gotten to that point in about a year and a half. It has about 113 or 114,000 messages on it. We get 200 or 300 messages a day, almost all of them about math, kids asking problems. They range from 12 years old to we have some college professors on the board who help kids who are preparing for the Putnam. So it covers that whole range. We I guess acquired is the right word, a community of IMO students that was mostly Eastern European and Asian. So this board really is international. If you look at our list of top 50 posters, I think only 25 are in the United States, maybe even less. So we do really have people from all over the world. And as far as the actual online teaching methodology, we've been doing it for a year and a half, but we've seen an interesting thing. In our introductory level classes, 60% of the top students are girls. In our Olympiad level classes, it's still 95% boys. But what I'm really hoping to see, and I don't know if it'll hold out, but I'm curious to see is the girls that are dominating our introductory classes now, will they dominate the intermediate classes? Will they stay on? Is this a medium effect? We don't know that yet, but I certainly see it in my classes, and it's really, really neat. As for what we're going to do in the future, we keep changing. I mean, we're a small, flexible unit, and so we added on the USAMTS. That was just this past year. That was a surprise. That kind of fell in our lap. We're playing around with some software projects as well, and it's exciting. We don't have the security and the funding that the academic world does, but we also have the freedom, and it's exciting because I get to do what all of us are here for. I get to do this 60 hours a week, and we'll see what happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Svezda?
Just something came up to my mind. Exporting lectures. I have been invited over 5-6 years since the Berkeley Math Circle started to actually many parts of the country and outside of the country to give math circle lectures to help start a math circle, and I certainly couldn't do it all myself. I have done it a little bit in South California. I actually had the audacity to go to Sudbury, Ontario, Canada last May, but that was planned a year ahead, and it took well, some personal effort and money. But it is very important to see how a math circle is run through personal example. The videotapes is on the starter. Watching 15 minutes on a screen, that's just not enough to feel it. And you also need to give a push to the kids and the parents so they see someone who has done it, who has experience, and they get drawn into it immediately. I have actually given such talks to 3 starting math circles, and I think the effect was really good. We got IMO 3-time gold medalist, right? In one of them, Tiankai. In any case, so the one of the roles of this network might be for people to put up their names and their resume and what they have done in their math circle and possible topics. And so when a new math circle wants to start somewhere, they can send a request, and whoever of those people can do it, there will be travel expenses sent, and that lecture can be exported.
Thanks, Vesta.
I just wanted to invite those of you with summer programs or something where you want to reach the students to feel free to contact me. We host what we call math jams. They're free sessions for the kids to come and get information. Sometimes we just do math. We've had the math camp people did that for the people who attended their camp this past year, and we have the Westinghouse people, and Zooming did one for the MOP. Those of you who want to contact me about that or about having a private community on the forum, we have private communities for various regions of the country, and we're building various ones for countries all over the world where just students from those countries get in and talk to each other. So anybody wants to talk to me about that, feel free to contact me.
Thanks much. We're almost out of time. We do have time for 1 or 2 more brief comments, and there are a couple of people here who have been trying to get a word in sideways. So where were the hands over here? Harvey?
I just want to make a brief comment about some networks that did work. One of them, if you remember the Young Scholars Program, we had it. Well, one would question whether all the things work, but one thing that works in all the groups that I've been together is you have to form a network. I'm hearing lots of great ideas, but I'm a little worried about the structure and the money, and we may be jumping the gun here where we're already going with the plans, but there's no real structure to put those plans in operation. I think one thing that could happen right here is to try to form some structure, maybe through MSRI, of a network that would continue to meet in some fashion. Now, I don't know if it's a physical meeting or a virtual meeting or just a networking and newsletter, but I think that's the first thing we have to get in group. And the reason for that is if you're going to get other people interested, they have to be able to point to something, and they have to be able to come to something and see that there's some structure rather than bring their own ideas. The second thing that was really good about some of the young scholar networks is we were very diverse, and when you had the network, you had a good leveraging effect, so you don't have one idea just running around or one approach getting in there. And I think we're at the stage that it's early in the game. We want to be very open and inclusive and see where it goes from there.
Maybe I'll take this opportunity to say a few things from the MSRI point of view. I'm David Eisenbutt. I was here present in the beginning, but I've lost my name tag somewhere along. I'm director of MSRI. And so I wanted to speak for the Institute a little bit. I must say I'm most impressed by this group and the enthusiasm and energy that it's shown. And I've been impressed for many years already by the idea of the math circles and by the local implementation. But I really do think that MSRI should continue to play a role in this, and we're eager to help establish some kind of national umbrella in the next months or year. Perhaps with some funding. We've been moderately successful so far, and have some avenues to be more successful, perhaps with getting some funding to add to this. I think one has to be modest in one's expectations, but a beginning is what it takes. Also, in the sense of videos that we've heard about, I think we could do more than we have. There are different levels of videos. Everybody knows how expensive it is to make a movie. And to make a really good math circle movie is probably beyond our immediate means. But we do have, as you see, means of making videotapes of lots of things. And I think that we could probably get the kind of streaming video quality things around much more than we have of the math circles as examples. So those are some ideas that I've gotten from this group that it seems to be well worth pursuing. Anyway, we're very eager to go on with this. I am personally, and I know Hugo Rossi, who can't be here today, is, and others who've worked with us over a long time, certainly the people in the front of the room, just for example. So you should look forward to that and help us do it. I'm hoping that you will go on supporting this kind of effort. One immediate way that you can support us, let me make a pitch for right away, is to make sure and fill out the exit questionnaires for this meeting. There's a box of them out there. There's Matt Miller waving a packet of them. It's quite important for us to have a record and also to have your comments. There are always things one can do better in meetings like this, and kinds of ideas that you have that we haven't thought about. So please be generous with your comments and tell us what we should be doing. Thanks very much. Thank you all for coming very much, too. It's really been a great meeting.
And one more time, could we quickly thank our organizers for putting together a terrific conference. Thanks much. Enjoy your trip back.